Hey friends, welcome to Tony's Water and Agriculture. Today we're going to do a brief video on how to make a worm bin. This is a first in our series on composting. We'll have some more technical videos about what composting is and how that can improve your farm. Today we're going to look at using worms, and then hopefully we'll have some follow-up videos on more worm topics in the future. Stick around, I hope you'll enjoy. Hi guys, today we're going to make our worm bin. So I just got some materials together. We've got two plastic bins here that we're going to use. If you don't have access to plastic bins, you could make some wooden ones, or you can make them out of tin, or anything you got lying around really, just as long as it holds soil in and holds worms in. So here I've just got two of these kind of Rubbermaid storage bins. I use these for traveling. And they come with lids. The one is going to be the bottom, that's just going to hold some crushed stones, so whatever leaks out of the top bin will be caught there so the worms don't drown in the liquid. And then the other bin is going to actually hold the worms in the compost. Another thing we're going to need is some bedding. Bedding can be made out of almost any carbon source. So here we have some different ones. Here I have some coconut coir brick. This is just ground up coconut hulls. This has been pressed into a brick form, so we'll get this wet. Has to store a little bit of moisture. This is good absorbing moisture. Another thing you can use is brown paper. So if you have any brown paper like this that comes with packaging, you can tear this up into little fine pieces. Maybe tear it up like this, little small bits, throw it in there, and you could use that as your bedding as well. You can use soil from your garden. And you can also use compost. So if you have some compost that you already made and it's no longer hot, you can use that for your base for your worm bin as well. Some things that you shouldn't use. Here's some like advertising stuff that we've gotten, and you know, it's got this glossy finish and it's got this glossy ink. So I'm not really sure if the worms can handle digesting these inks, so I've tried to avoid that. Here's some thin cardboard like cereal boxes and some other things like that come in. This happened to used to be masks. It's COVID time. So this again has this like glossy ink surface, so we're not going to use anything like that. Another thing you don't want to use is, so this is like my mail, and sometimes they have these plastic windows in them. So you could feed this to your worms, but first you'd want to reach in here and rip out this piece of plastic, because worms can't eat plastic. So you want to avoid trash. You don't want like aluminum foil things like maybe your Knacks boxes or anything like that. Any kind of like foiled potato chip wrapper or something like that's not going to work out. And you don't want plastic bags in there. But otherwise, pretty much most papers are fair game. So here we have just some white paper. Same deal with the brown paper. You can rip this into little bits. Get it moist, and we could use that as well. So today we're going to use a combination of the coconut brick, because I don't actually have any compost ready at the moment. So we're going to use some of this coconut brick, and we're going to mix it with some various paper trash we have around the house, just because I want it to be composted. So that's what we're going to do there. So let's get started. So I'm going to take my other bin that doesn't have my bag in it. And we're going to start with that. We're going to use this one to catch all the leachate that comes out. So all the excess liquid made from the rotting debris or from our worms, or maybe we get overzealous watering, this will catch that. Some people drill a hole down here and they put like a drain. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to check it every once in a while by lifting up the other bin and then dump this out if I have to. So, but we do need something to create some space between the two bins, and something that's not going to mind getting wet. It's heavy. So I've got some small stones. So I'm in America right now. If I was in Zambia, I would just go down to the riverbed and find a place where it deposited some stones, and I'd get some stone there. Or else I'd get it from some quarries. But since I'm in the United States right now, I just got this bag of stones. So let's get this open and get started. Alright, so we got our stone here. Spread it out. So we've got about 2 inches here on the bottom of our bin. Move that around evenly. So now that we've got the stone in here, we can set this bin aside because it's ready to go. Alright, now we have our second bin that's going to hold our worms. So we're just going to take this and we're going to drill some holes in it. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch drill bit, but if you didn't have a drill, you could certainly use a large nail. Just poke some holes in the bottom, and this is just for drainage. In case like I said, we get too much liquid in here, it'll keep from drowning our worms. As long as we're checking on our other bin, making sure it's not full of liquid every couple of weeks, we should be good. So I'm just going to make some holes in these ribs in the lowest spot. Alright, so now I'm going to drill our holes. I'm just going to go along these ribs that are the lowest point, and I'm going to make sure that they're pretty well spaced out. Alright, now I got sufficient holes. I don't think it's going to try to pull anywhere. Flip this over. Now, we're simply going to put this bin on top of our bin of rocks. Look at that. You can see now, because there's that gap there, these bins aren't trying to stick together or anything. I'm just going to smooth out my stones so they're even. And there we go. Now it's time to fill this with bedding. Now we're going to take our coconut brick. If you have a place that you can get these, and we're going to stick it in water and let it dissolve a bit. So I'm just doing this in a pot that we have here. You can see as it absorbs water, it'll start to break up, and it'll give us, looks a lot like compost. It'll give us the worms something to crawl through and something to keep them moist. We got this all mixed up now. We got our cardboard, and we've also mixed in some paper and some coconut coir. This is a good mix. It's damp to the touch, but when I try to wring it out, it doesn't really drip any water. That's what we want. If it starts dripping water, it might go anaerobic and you might start getting some fermentation in here, which we don't want. So this bed is sitting and getting ready for our worms. Alright, so now that we got our worm bin mostly finished and almost ready for worms, the last thing we need is some ventilation. So I'm just going to cut a 2-inch or 50mm hole, 2 of them, one on each side on the top here. You can also do a row of smaller holes around the top or some other configuration, but I wanted to put them in the lid here, and then I'm going to glue in with just some hot glue some of this fly screen that'll keep any large insects from getting in there and attacking our worms or eating our compost. This particular bin is going to live in my kitchen, so we'd like to keep it well aerated, and we also like to keep the predators out or keep any nuisance house flies out of there. So I'm just going to take this, and this particular lid already has nice squares, so I'm going to put one on each extreme end. The worms really don't like light, so I don't want to put them in the middle. I want to keep all the light to a minimum. Side design would be better for keeping light out, but this I think is going to give us a little bit better airflow because our other bin is so close to the top here. So I'm just going to eyeball the middle of one of these squares. Now we just need to cut some fly screen that'll fit, and I'm just going to make it basically the same size as these squares here. So I'm going to hold that up on one of these squares. I'm going to take a pair of heavy shears. Alright, so now I've got my 2 pieces of fly screen. Get rid of this roll. And we'll flip this over and glue it in. Alright, now we're just going to take our hot glue and we're going to make a little box around our hole here. Nothing too fancy. And we're going to put our wire screen in here. Alright, and we'll move to the other one. This time I'm going to trim it just a little bit better so it fits in this hole nicely. There you go, it looks good. Again, this time we're going to apply the glue a little bit more liberally. Now we're going to put our screen in before it gets cold. Again, I'm going to burn our fingers. Someone more intelligent than me would use a small stick. There we go. Now I'll clean this up a little bit and let's see what it looks like from the top. I'll flip that over. You can see we have a nice neat hole. A couple little burrs there with our mosquito screen so flies can't get in there and lay their eggs. And we can put this right on our bin. And now the worms should be able to breathe and we should be able to keep out any pests. So now we've got our bin set up. You can see that I've got our bedding in here with some cardboard and some paper and some coconut coir. Like I said, I'll put a list up of all the different things that you can use in your bin depending on where you're at. We've also got some apple peels and some bits of potato and bits of carrot and some other scraps from the kitchen. Here's a bit of pumpkin thrown in here for the worms to eat, and this has been sitting for a couple days while we've waited for our worms to come, and they've come. So here I'll get out our worms. So I got these from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm here in Pennsylvania. If you're in Africa, I'm going to leave a link in the description to where you can find those. I might even put something up on the video. So I'm going to take some of our worms out and we're going to put these in. So you can see there's just full of little wiggler worms. They're quite active. So here I'm just going to show you. Red wigglers are kind of a small worm. And the reason I'm using red wigglers and not night crawlers is these guys like to be at the surface. And so if you use a deep delving worm, they're going to want to go deep down in your bin, and they're not going to be very happy in a shallow bin like that. But these composting worms like red wigglers and African tiger worms are going to enjoy this shallow surface. And these guys don't like light, so they're just going to try to burrow down in. And you can see them all trying to escape now. So they'll start burrowing in and settling in. So I'm just going to put the lid on this and leave these guys alone to get settled. So the worms have been in here for 24 hours. So they've started to adjust to this. And I'm going to feed them about a week's worth of food. So I have a pound of worms here, about 1,000 of them. And so they can eat about a quarter of their weight a day. And I've got about 2 pounds of food. So this is probably 10 days of food. So this is one feeding. And I'm not going to need to feed them again for almost 2 weeks. So I'm just going to scrape away some surface here to stick the food so it's down in the bedding a little bit so they can find it. It's going to be gentle. I don't want to crush our worms. So I'm just going to feed along this one side today. And then when this one side's good, I'll feed the other side. You can see there are a lot of worms here in the bin. So just got some vegetable scraps. So I've got some lettuce that was going bad. I'll sprinkle some of that in here. And I got some apples that were going rotten. There's going to be some more. And finally I got some banana peels that I cut up. So I'm just going to fill up this one side with food. Kind of spread it out a bit. And then I'm just going to gently cover that over with some of the bedding. That way the worms will be able to be in the dark when they're finding it. Like I said, I won't have to feed these guys probably for 2 weeks. And we'll see how this goes.